Hi there, and welcome to another episode of How is Dulles Going to Get Himself in Trouble with His Big Mouth This Time? Uh, that is, in the past 6 to 12 months, I've seen it happen more and more prominently that there are mid-sized to smaller MBTI YouTubers who do interviews with other personality types. And inevitably, they bring on an INFP. And inevitably, when I go to watch those, because I think it's going to be something interesting, I find that it is not an INFP, but generally some other personality type. For the most part, we're talking about high FE users, which makes sense because that's the sort of folks that would be more comfortable interfacing in an interview environment. But you'll also get the occasional ISFP. So aside from kind of the immediate circle of some of us that are all in touch with each other, those interviews that non-INFPs do of INFPs inevitably end up being something, I believe, other than INFPs. And this is something that is going to be subjective because we all have different ideas on how the cognitive functions manifest. But to that point, I will propose to you 5 ways to tell that there's sort of a back of the head, something isn't quite right here in the description of an INFP when they describe their INFP qualities in an interview. So, number 1, if somebody says that they know right away, they've got an immediate gut reaction about what's right and what's wrong, and it's fast and it's decisive and it's powerful. I bring to you evidence of the INTP. When you think about an INTP, they don't go into little kindergarten logic stuff. They look at big questions. And when they ponder those big questions, there is no particular time frame in which that pondering terminates. So yes, a TI and INTP could make a quick decision on something, but that's not what would interest them. And it's not the way that they want to engage with TI. You want to wrestle with big things that take a lot of awareness and a lot of deliberation to come up with an answer. And for the INFP, you look at this, it's the same thing. Having that introverted judging as your dominant function backed up with extroverted intuition means that an INFP is quite happy to deliberate on a particular issue for as long as it takes. And I will add to that, without necessarily having any strong opinion on the outcome one way or another. There has to be some level of interest to want to spend that much time. That is universal. Not going to spend days and weeks pondering something in which you clearly have no vested interest in. But a lot of the time, the sorts of things that are being pondered are challenging and nuanced. They're interesting to an INFP because they are so complicated and because the answer is very gray. If you just have something like, this is right, this is wrong, I mean, it's just not interesting. So when someone describes their INFP qualities and says that they know right away and it's a gut reaction and it's a powerful reaction and all that, it's like, that's not generally how FiNe works. I mean, it's feasible, but it's not really the quality of an INFP that makes them how they are. It's the slowness of it all that makes an INTP or an INFP what they are, not speed. Okay, number 2, that the concept of authenticity is specific to FI dominance, and that it extends into the physical environment in a primary meaningful way, like saying you have to adhere to goth fashion or to preppy fashion or to want to decorate your body with tattoos and piercings or however you interpret that externalizing introverted feeling into the external world. Saying that, like, I won't wear a suit because it's not authentic to me, that sort of thing. Authenticity isn't a fashion statement. It's in whatever you want to call this thing that it is an internalized thing. Most of the clothes that I wear are not mine, but someone else has bought them for me. In university, it was especially that way, where I basically lived off of whatever hand-me-downs I had from other people because I had no money and no sense of fashion. The sense of fashion that I did have was rather out there. And I think that there is a specific reason for it, that it's a lack of awareness of propriety, but then also mixed with that, how to put this, mixed with that is an idea that I've had that is not to get too comfortable in being part of the group. There is a separateness that I have had. And you could say, oh, that's Enneagram 4, however you'd like to put that. But the idea is that even though I would rather wish to be part of a thing, I am in some way compelled, is not quite the right word, but it is necessary for me to do things like wear a fedora or have a pair of red trousers, or to dress in a way that is fitting, but perhaps a little bit different. And some of it's just oversight, not being aware of what's appropriate, but some of it's also that I know that I have to have that lack of comfort that I am not part of the group, however that group might be. And that, again, comes from probably my upbringing and more sociocultural stuff. But as you can tell, that is a very different thing from saying, I have to wear these clothes because it's part of my fashion statement. No, it's more like I got whatever clothes I have, and that's that. And similarly, authenticity in terms of like setting the workspace, like I couldn't possibly do this kind of job. Well, geez, I worked in a parking garage. I was a dishwasher. I was a waiter and busboy. Trying to think of all the other stuff I did. Worked in a gas station and Quickie Mart for years. They give you a uniform and that's what you wear. And it's not as if I'm going to say, oh, this is not authentic to myself. That's such a load. It's not the fashion that makes the person. That, I would say, is much more of an SE, maybe SE and I sort of thing. But what I wear doesn't really matter. By the way, speaking of which, wearing this is something of a coup for me because my shoulder is still in recovery. But for once, I'm no longer wearing button-downs. I've managed to get a long-sleeved shirt on and a sweater that I've had to pull over my head. So I am making progress. Oh, and neither one of these pieces I purchased. They were given to me, and it's like, great, I have clothes to wear. Okay, next. INFPs are good listeners because they want to understand what the other person wants. No, not at all. That's FE. FE people are good listeners because they want to interface and understand each other and kind of understand their needs and requirements and how that all kind of fits together and how to bring about social harmony or intentionally disharmonize, but that's the level at which that listening and conversation is taking place. INFP listening, real listening, is putting yourself into the feet of the person, inhabiting kind of the experience that the other person is relating to you. So you are relating and recreating the feelings, the emotions that they had, and understanding both your own re-experiencing of the emotions that they tell you and feeling how they must have felt in that moment. On top of that, it's also the extroverted intuition angle of vicariously kind of moving alongside the person and then anticipating the things that are happening next. And therefore, there's this combination of walking alongside, walking ahead, and seeing how the landscape of the story is unrolling as it's being told, and then also seeing what's happening behind. That is what the whole, like, the extent to which you believe the Dario Nardi neuroscience, when it says like the whole INFP brain lights up, that's what's going on. There are multiple levels of living in the person's story as you're listening to it. And it is a powerful gift. I would say it's a powerful gift for an INFP to be able to listen and live with you in that story. So for those of you who are storytellers, thank you for allowing us to be listeners. So very different from understanding what the other person wants. It is in this way, purely a selfish act, self-centered act of the art of listening. And if there's something we can give back as a thank you, I mean, that would be precious as well. Okay, number 4. The INFP feels things more intensely than all of the other personality types. Oh, good Lord. I think I've talked about this in the past. I do not believe, and I think it's very egotistical to believe that INFPs feel more deeply than anybody else does. I think we all universally have these emotions and feel deeply. The FI person happens to experience, or they're more aware of what they're feeling. But that being said, being aware of that feeling doesn't mean that you're going to be at these great emotional highs and lows and all over the place. I rather don't like that. The same way that not all ESTPs go and jump out of airplanes with parachutes. I mean, some people are into that adrenaline rush, and a lot are not. I don't want to feel things deeply at the extremes. I think that's a pretty miserable way to live. I rather prefer the feeling flat, as I've put it in the past, but having the ability to pick up on nuances because there aren't these extremes of emotion. So emotion is not a close ally of FI judging, at least not these extremes of emotion that most people think of when they think of emotions, anger and grief and sadness and exuberance and joy. That's all nice, but I would prefer something that's ring-fenced in a much more delicate and nuanced way to do detail work, as opposed to taking an emotional sledgehammer to things. So this idea that INFPs feel intensely, everyone can feel intensely. So when you get onto this whole thing of like, we feel deeper than others, that sort of egotism is something that my FI would evaluate and ultimately reject. Okay, lastly, extroverted intuition, because we haven't talked about that yet. Number 5, NE is used to create stuff. Therefore, NE inspires, and then there's an output. Everyone can be creative, everyone can do stuff. In fact, I would say INFPs and INTPs are more challenged to the not doing stuff side of things. So if you're consistently creating, I mean, good on you. It's a challenge for me even to sit down here. It's a forcefulness. It's a deliberate act that takes time to get to. So what NE is it's much more insane than that. It is all about just connections between things. Everything is connected. And it's the maelstrom. It is insanity. It's understanding Van Gogh and the struggle of just feeling like, sometimes like you're going mad because your brain is doing stuff faster than the rest of you can catch up. But the stuff it's doing is just all over the place. So yes, there is a creativity to NE, but any intuition is creative. You can have extroverted intuition backslot. It just takes one idea. And then, what is it? My mom used to say something like, it's 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. So creating a thing, you only need one good idea, and then you just execute on that. I have many ideas, and they just end up on cutting room floors because it's all pointless, useless, mostly just pointless garbage. It's focusing that stuff is much more like just throwing throwing anything at the wall, seeing if it sticks. It is not. So NE, how I experience NE it's madness. If I were to try and talk through it, it's free association that is intrusive. And so it takes concentration to sort of put these things aside and focus in on what's important. NE with FI is just infinite wheel spinning. It's infinite wheel spinning that you have a particular thing that you're evaluating, and there are always new ways to evaluate. And at some point, you've just got to stop, even though you don't never really stop. But at some point, you've got to be like, this is the 80% mark. I've got to push something out there because otherwise it'll just sit in my head forever, which is what most things do for someone who's introverted, judging, dominant, any auxiliary. Just sits inside the head, gets dropped, and never gets produced into anything meaningful. Okay, 5 ways that, 5 kind of waypoints where if someone is doing an interview and they're talking about being an INFP and they bring up these things, it's sort of a reasons to be skeptical, let's say. And that's all I've got. I think I've prattled on for more than my allotted time. So if you're still listening, thank you so much. And